765. Good morning, NCQMA race fans. This is Mike Pettaway coming to you live from the NCQMA track in beautiful Salisbury, North Carolina, where it's bright and sunny. I'm sitting alongside my race announcer, Mr. Sam Hatfield. Good morning, Mr. Hatfield.
Good morning.
We were just discussing food, and I can't imagine discussing food with a teenager, but Sam's going to go get some food when we bring on our special guests here for our pre-race interviews. But Sam, another hot sunny day. It looks like maybe some clouds rolling in. Is it going to rain this afternoon? Because you're always pretty good at the weather.
I haven't checked the weather. We'll leave that to someone else. Last time I said it wasn't going to rain, it flooded the track.
Well, we're excited about another big day of racing here at the NCQMA. I think we got over 50. I think it was 52 car count. And they're going through some heat races, so we're going to get all that done. We're going to get our special guest to come around, and we're going to interview him while Sam goes and takes care of his hunger needs. But our special guest is Mr. Ron Stanley from Robbie Stanley Racing, and he's just got his seat here in the booth, and we're going to talk to Mr. Stanley. How are you this morning?
Oh, I'm fine, thank you.
This is my second year down here at the NCQMA, and there's one person, one familiar face I see everywhere I go, and that would be Ron Stanley.
Oh, yeah, and we don't miss many.
Now, we'll talk a little bit about Robbie Stanley Racing. If you don't mind, let's give the listeners a little bit of background on, the first Stanley I ever heard of was Robbie Stanley when he was racing. So tell us how that got started and how that, cause I'm sure as a kid he raced, and just go ahead and tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I started my boys race. Well, my oldest boy, Robbie, started racing in 1974. And his younger brother, Ryan, started 3 years later. And at about that time, I was working with, probably you heard of Andy Hillenberg. Well, he was his niece. And we were talking one day, and I said, if I was building these cars, I'd do this and that. And he told us to build one. And said, yeah, let's do that. So I built one, built for his little niece, and I built one for my two boys, and just kind of.
Junior Honda race is out next. We need Anderson.
Never really thought at that time about building, but
thank you, Mr. Sullivan.
Had the Grands that year in 1977.
Amy Painter to the tower to score.
Colorado. And we decided to go. So I took my two boys and the Hillenberg girl with two cars, and went out there and ran, and a guy came up and introduced himself to me, and said his name was John Bickford, and he'd been looking at the cars. If you don't know, that John Bickford's Jeff Gordon's stepdad.
Mm-hmm.
Jeff Gordon was 6 years old at that time, and we kind of chatted and went home, and a couple weeks later, Jeff's dad called me and said, hey, I want to buy that yellow car.
Out next on the track is the Junior Honda. And he raced the first of two.
He did, and did well in it. And all of a sudden,
car number 3 is
a lot of people from California started calling. You probably heard of Mike Bliss. He used to run Indy cars for a while. Jimmy Vassar ran Indy cars. And they started calling. And I found myself, do I want to do this full time? Or anyhow, long story short, here we are today. I started building full time and been doing it since 1977. Yes.
So you built the car that Jeff Gordon raced in?
Oh yeah,
cool.
built Jeff many cars. Ryan Newman drove our cars. It's funny now. We're. Look at these kids, not kids anymore. They're running NASCAR.
And they've got kids running cars.
And now we're building cars for them.
Yeah.
So it's been good. We've really enjoyed it. And of course, we had lost our son, Robbie, in 1994 in a sprint car. And kind of
Amy Painter to the tower
got away
to
from
score,
the building
please.
for a little bit.
Amy
We had to have a break.
To score, please.
And got back in it. And my youngest son, Ryan, and we wanted to keep the legacy of Robbie going as best because that's why it's called Robbie Stanley Racing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we are today.
Now, like I said, this is my second year down here, and of course you've been around this for a long time, but I've been absolutely amazed at how young and how talented these kids are.
Oh, it is amazing.
I mean, if you can close your eyes and think, it's almost like these guys have been driving forever, and girls.
Right.
And, they don't have radios, no mirrors, and they get around here on these little tight corners and race their little heads off. And, but then when they climb out of the car, what's really good, Ron, is they're just one big happy family. The kids go over and play together.
Oh, it's great.
And I'm sure you go to a lot of national events, and I'm sure the higher up you go, as in any racing or any sport, the more competitive it gets. But at this level where these kids are trying to, I guess, decide, am I going to be a race car driver or not? But I want to talk a little bit about the safety of these cars, because, we've seen some pretty spectacular-looking rollovers or accidents. And you walk over there and the kid's hanging upside down laughing, because, So tell us a little bit about how, because you build chassis for these cars. What makes these cars so safe? I know that's the utmost importance for these kids.
Well, it is for us. It's our number one thing, is to make them as safe as we can. And I feel like all of our competitors do. We want them safe. We certainly don't want to see a kid get hurt. I've been in it now, close to 40 years, and rarely see an injury. And you got to realize, when we started, these cars didn't have roll cages. They didn't wear shoulder belts. They just wore lap belts. They didn't wear neck restraints. And like any other form of racing, as it evolved, so, we better make these cars a little safer. I will take credit for putting the first down tubes on the car. That's the bars that run from the cage down to the front of the car, which I think is probably the safest thing that's ever happened. Of course, now it's mandatory. And, now we have the kids in seats and HOMS devices, and I think it's the safest thing you put a kid in.
I like the arm restraints. It keeps them from flailing their arms around, and when they roll over, they're just like in a carnival ride. They're all bunched up in there, and really it's amazing, because first time I came down here, some of the parents were saying, "Wait till you see some of these races," and I thought, yeah, right. And you see a guy go up over the fence, and land upside down. And, of course, Grandma and Mom are having a fit in the stands. Yeah. Kids laying there, get me back on the wheel so I can race some more.
They usually say, "Oh, that was fun."
Yeah, they say, "Yeah, that was great." And that's what I've been impressed with the kids' maturity at this age. Tell us a little bit about, I cover a lot of sports, and I have found that as far as maturing sooner, these little race car drivers seem to be, all these little kids are great interviews, 6 years old.
Sure.
Doing an interview and being articulate and tell me why his car is loose or tight. What makes it so in racing that kids do, if they want to race, they do grow up sooner, I think?
They do, and this is a tremendous training ground. It's, like I said, I named some of those drivers earlier, and you see where they are today. And we now have a kid that you're going to be hearing a whole lot about in big-time racing. That's Harrison Burton. He's already, I think he's 12 years old, won 3 or 4 late model races. And I was talking to Jeff, his dad, one day, and he said, "Boy, if anybody wants to make their kid a race car driver, this is where they need to start." They learn so much here. Things happen so fast. My son, Robbie, when he was 16, we put him in a sprint car, and after we went out in hot lap to come in, I said, "What do you think?" He said, "Man, it's like slow motion."
Yep.
And I said, you got to be kidding. But you realize these kids going around here 5-6 seconds.
And they're always, there's always something going on. You don't have a long straightaway to relax. You get right back in the corner. And I've had 3 or 4 drivers, some of them racing K&N now, tell me that they learn how to handle a car right on the quarter midget track. They said if you can get around a quarter midget track, like you said, everything bigger, it seems slower.
Yeah.
One of your guys, Ryan Repko, said when he got in a limited late model, it was like slow motion, everything. Because here it's like bang, 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 and that's what impresses me is how quickly these kids can react and do things.
Oh, it is. It's amazing. It's really amazing. I've been watching for 40 years. I'm amazed what these kids do. They keep going faster and faster. Tires get better, cars get better, engines get better. It's just absolutely amazing. And our kids used to stick around until they were 15, 16 years old. Now so many of them are moving on early. Whether that's good or bad, I don't know.
Yeah, I've noticed some of the late model races I've been to. You got some of the seasoned veterans who are the really raw Saturday night racers, but then you got these 14 and 15-year-old kids coming there that last year were winning quarter midget regionals. Now they're at Ace Speedway or at Caraway or at Hickory, and they're competitive. I mean, they really are.
Yeah, you mentioned Ryan Repko. I mean, he's doing a great job. People follow this late model racing and stuff. Tyler Ankrum out of California, so he won his first race the other night. And, it's just because of all the experience, not just because, it certainly helps that they've learned here.
Well, and there's another graduate that came through this little track, pretty recognizable name, Ryan Blaney.
Yeah.
Look where he's at today.
Ryan, amazing.
And besides, and I had the privilege of talking to Ryan and Tyler on one of our pre-race shows. They're such fine young men, beyond being able to drive a race car. So, and in racing, when you get bigger and bigger, is a business.
Yeah.
And before I'm going to put my name on your car, can you represent me? And that's where these kids are.
Yep.
They seem like they've learned how to be a spokesperson.
Yep.
And that's, particularly when you get to the higher levels where it's multi-million dollars, you've got to be able to go up to a corporation and say, I will sell your product on TV and I will be a gentleman at the racetrack. Right. Don't you agree? That's as important.
Absolutely, yes. Before Robbie had his accident, he had ran 5 bush races for a guy named John Linville, who was Kevin Harvick's father-in-law.
Delane's father.
Delane's dad. Mm-hmm. And things were going well. Rick Hendrick was looking at him. But we had those conversations. And all of a sudden, when Robbie started wearing button-down shirts instead of T-shirts, which, he was more than happy to do. But you're right. It's as much fun as it is, it's still business. Mm-hmm. And it's very expensive, and like you say, you have to be able to sell the sponsor's product, and you're not going to do it without the sponsors. Sure.
And in a way, it's kind of sad that it's gotten to the dollar governs the racing, basically. I mean, and I've got family in racing that in the Sprint Cup racing, and it is a business, and they work hard every day. And it's not the normal fan sees the glorious side of racing, but as you know, in the background where you build cars or if you do other things, there's a lot of work goes into getting these cars on track on Sunday afternoon.
There is. It's
First
this
place
this
is Delaney
racing
Hodge.
right here has
Second
got.
place is Mason Woodward.
It's affordable
place is
racing. An
Tyler
average
Conover.
family can do it, but
Fourth place is Mason
there's a lot of money
Darnett.
coming in there
Fifth
too.
place, Cody Conover.
And the big sponsors haven't come along or anything because obviously it wouldn't do them a whole lot of good. But racing's expensive. But the good thing about quarter midgets, you can do it on any level you wish.
Mm-hmm.
We got people out here that this is the only track they ever run. Come out here on Saturdays, have as much fun as any of us. We've got people that run the regional series. People run the national series. Yeah, you can go to any level you want. And, it's just great.
And you speak about different, people with different motives for being here. Some people just, this is their track. But then you get some of these drivers who really have an ambition to be in the upper echelon of racing someday. Do you see sometimes how maybe that particular driver and his team, in this case his family, maybe approach this a little bit more on a competitive nature than the casual driver who's here really just to have fun? And sometimes the mix sometimes doesn't quite come out the way everybody wants it to, but you have to understand everybody has different reasons for being here.
Yep. It's, there are, I don't know how many, there are 2 divisions here, USAC, QMA. I don't know the total number of members. I'm going to say 750 to 1,000. A whole bunch of those think they're probably going to be in an IndyCar or a NASCAR car, and in reality it's probably not going to happen because it is so much like we say, money involved, and there are kids with tons of talent that not going to get the opportunity.
It is. It's like kids that play baseball or football or basketball. They've got their vision. I'm going to be playing on Sundays. But you got to realize, even when you go from high school to college, you're just, when you get into college, you may have been an all-state high school player. You're just one of the gang when you get to college.
Senior Honda, you should be in
And
the hot
racing, you got
chute.
43
Lord
cars
willing,
to start on
no
Sunday.
license, you should be in the hot
Okay,
chute.
out of
Light
all
one,
these
one
kids
low,
that
heavy
that
Honda,
look on
light
TV and want to be the
160
next
should
Jeff
all be
Gordon, the
heading
next
to
Casey
stadium.
Kane, and I think it's just a matter of just luck falling in your hands. I mean, if you can bring sponsorship, obviously you got a hand up on somebody.
Yeah, you still have to perform, even if you bring the sponsorship.
Yep.
We've seen that, not to mention any names, but we have seen some who brought the big money, and you still have to perform.
Yeah,
When we started out in this, big time racing never entered our minds. We just wanted to go out and have fun, and I was one of them that said, well, let's just run a weekly race. We were living in Indianapolis at that time. Well, then somebody said, hey, we need to go to Huntsville. I went down there, and then the Christmas we went to Florida, and it just kind of took off. We got pretty well involved, and Robbie turned 16. We got him a sprint car, and still at that point, if I could have run World Outlaws, I'd have been thrilled. And then we got the opportunity for some NASCAR stuff. It just kind of happened. So I don't know. People ask me, what should I do? I don't know. Just win races. Talked to Ray Evernham when Robbie was still alive, and we were talking at that time, wanted to try to be big time, make it big time. I said, Ray, what do I need to do? He said, it doesn't matter what you do, what you run, where you run, just win races, we'll hear about it. So, I would say that's number one from this level to whatever you go to, win races, and they'll know it. Then maybe something good will come out of it.
Now, have you noticed in the last few years, the social media has taken over?
Oh, yeah.
And if you say a bad word, the world's going to know it in 3 seconds.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. How is that? How do you think these drivers today have to approach? I mean, they're under a microscope, and they all have Twitter accounts, they have Facebooks, and everybody, in my opinion, Facebook can be the best thing in the world, and it can be the worst thing in the world.
Well, that's true.
And I think, the old-time drivers that I grew up watching, the Pettys and the Earnhardts and Pearsons, I don't think they could survive in this kind of a environment because, they were just pure racers.
Right.
And you didn't have to know what they did on Saturday night or Sunday morning or whatever because it's none of your business, But now, every time a driver sneezes, there's a picture on Instagram or something.
Oh, yeah.
And that I would think that would add some pressure because we talk about sometimes the drivers are, particularly in NASCAR, are out of touch with the fans. I know NASCAR is trying a million things, trying to alleviate that perception. But, when you stop and think about it, Ron, when you're a world-famous race car driver, and these NASCAR drivers are, they deserve some private time. They deserve to be able to go to the grocery store without being mobbed.
Sure.
And when they're at the racetrack, that's their job.
Yep.
And I know they have obligations that sponsors say, I got a tent set up, you're going to be over here for 20 minutes. But to the casual fan, and I've been the casual fan, you get disappointed when the perception is they're ignoring us.
Right.
But in reality, I doubt if you're going to find too many race car drivers that take it for granted how they got to where they're at. Because there's a lot of wealthy race car drivers now.
Well, there is.
And it's still, in my opinion, NASCAR is still my favorite form of racing. I love these quarter midget for different reasons, but you've been in open wheels. I guess most of your racing has been open wheel.
It has, yes.
How do you prefer open wheel racing as far as, like when you watch an Indy race on TV, quite frankly, I don't get that sense of excitement about side-by-side racing or rubbing off because there's nothing to rub off of. You hit a guy, you're going to be in the wall.
Exactly. I do watch some of the open wheel IndyCar racing, not a whole lot. NASCAR is usually exciting, but to me, there's nothing like the sprint cars. I love them. Close racing, most powerful race car in the world. Robbie, was fortunate enough to win a world or a All-Star Circuit of Champions championship. The next 3 years, he won USAC, and he got a call from a guy down here to run a sportsman car. It was an entry level for NASCAR at that time. And we did. We went to Richmond and ran it. And he came in. He said, "It's the most boring thing I've ever done in my life." But it's what I want to do, you know. But he said, "You push your gas down, nothing happens. You push your gas down the sprint car, you probably got front wheels out there." So you know, Tony Stewart, obviously, he loves the sprint cars. Blaney went back and run the World Outlaws this summer, and they all love them. And but they all love their NASCAR deals too, and so do I, and so do the fans. It's good racing.
You know, you see some of these drivers who came up through the dirt ranks, and they get on the Sprint Cup race, and they don't complain half as much, in my opinion, about how a car handles, because they're used to throwing a car around.
Right.
You know, you get in the corner. If you don't hang it out in the corner, you're not driving. You know, but some drivers, well, it's too loose. I can't handle this thing. But you'll get a Greg Biffle or even a Kyle Busch. If they don't tear the right rear fender off, they aren't racing. You know, and that's what's cool about it, is that they take these cars and what they've learned, they're able to control a bigger car, you know, on a much bigger track. But they know that I'm not losing control of the car. When it turns that way, I'll straighten it back out. And you'll see these announcers say, "Well, that was a great save." Well, you should have seen them when they did it on the dirt track.
Yeah, you know. I lost my train of thought. Casey Kane.
Casey.
He came from sprint cars, and you see what he does. He's up against the wall, hanging it out, and you know, two totally different types of racing. But I think you know, Jeff Gordon, Sprint Car World, Midgets, and Ryan Blaney and Dave Blaney, and you can see that they've been there. And,
now, how surprised are you of how quickly there's two young drivers I've been really impressed with, and one of them obviously is Ryan Blaney and Chase Elliott. Chase gets in the car, and he, you know, he's like Bill. He's not a big egotistical guy. He's not going to go out there and beat his chest. But how impressed are you with those two at that young age? How they've gone out there and really dominated their series, or at least been the top star in their series.
I'm extremely impressed. You know, they obviously have some of the best equipment out there, but they wouldn't have it, like we were talking earlier, if they weren't
performing.
And they are performing, and Ryan Blaney, to me right now, is the most impressive thing I see coming as of today. Elliott is certainly very good. And you'll see more of it. They're coming, you know, they'll... But you look at their backgrounds, and you know, they've run some pretty fast race cars on dirt, open wheel cars, high horsepower cars, and it certainly pays off.
But you know, you say they've got good equipment, but I've seen other drivers get in some good equipment and be mediocre on the track.
Yeah.
So
yep.
It's a fine. I mean, you got to mesh the talent with the equipment, and a crew chief in that level is really important.
It is.
You got to be able to communicate with them, and I think one of the best in the business is Rick Hendrick at putting people together. I mean, he has a magic. And now I'm really proud of Junior, how he's put together the JR Motorsport, how they've come through this year in the Nationwide Series.
Yes.
I mean, it's unbelievable, and I think it goes to show people that if you work hard at something and you do it the right way, then you know you'll be successful eventually. I mean, you've been successful. And I'm sure you put in a lot of long hours working over the years.
Yeah, there's probably a lot of you have heard of Jesse James. He's got a TV show.
Yeah.
Motorcycles, hot rods, and in fact, somebody was showing me something that he posted, and I shared it on Facebook. You might be able to see it on there, but basically it said if you want to be successful, you work twice as hard as anybody else. You work holidays, you work Christmas, you work your birthday. While the other guys sitting around the tavern drinking beer talking about how much everything costs.
Yep.
And basically, you know, it might be a little extreme, birthdays, Christmas, and everything, but if you're going to be successful and you're uneducated like I am, you know, I'm a high school graduate and I'm working my hands, you've got to work. And I love to work. You know, I retired in 97, 98, moved to Florida. My son, Ryan, ran the business. That wasn't for me. 2 years later, I said, I'm going to go back to work. I love to work. And a friend of mine, I graduated, my best friend from high school, he was telling me, man, you need to slow down. You need to go play some golf. And his name's John. I said, John, I don't play golf, you know. I go out and bend, weld, and grind I like that way better than golf. I am retired. I'm just doing what I love to do. I love being around these kids. I love building the race cars. Like you said earlier, get out of the cars and the kids all go play. Well, us and the parents, go play and talk and rerun the races. And it's not just come out here, race, and go home. It's a family thing.
And you talk about hard work. These kids, and their families, besides investing money, I mean, it takes time during the week. Like I was talking to one parent who his car got into a wreck the last race we had here, and he had to almost rebuild it from scratch. Everything was bent on it. Mm-hmm. And, of course, that's, first of all, expensive, and it takes all your time. But you got to be dedicated to what you're doing. And sometimes I think, and maybe you see a lot of this, parents are trying to live their dream through their kid.
Oh, yes.
And their kid may not necessarily want to be a race car driver. He may walk up one day after you spent 5 years of all your money and say, I want to go play basketball. I don't want to drive anymore. So it's, I think there's a fine line between telling your kid we are going to go race, or if your kid says, Dad, I want to go race today.
It is. That rarely happens. It does happen. I've seen it happen through the years that a kid just doesn't really want to do it. So, perfect example, and everybody stands around and says, how did that happen, was Mark Martin's son. Great kid. Mark actually built a track in Florida like Bobby did here, and Mark decided I wish I could think of his name, his son, but he decided he didn't want to do it. And look how far he could have gone. I mean, but, you either want to do it or you don't. And it's very rare I see a kid that doesn't want to do it.
I know these kids are having a ball out here racing, and I know they all want to win, and they all, you see them, sometimes they get disappointed. But they really, like we said earlier, it started to show how impressive we are with how they can drive these cars. I mean, it's like if some of these, and it's no wonder why these late model owners will grab a kid off a quarter midget circuit and put him in a car at 14 or 15 years old, because it's not like you got to train him from square one.
Oh, he knows the basics.
I mean, he's already got a lot of stuff already down, and at this young age, they pick up stuff so quickly.
They do.
I'm amazed at how they tell. When I interview some of them, they'll tell me their car was, and I don't know if they're saying this because they heard Jeff Gordon say it, but my car was loose entry and it was tight coming.
Well, they know.
But I think they got their hands on that wheel, and they know every bump in the track. Mm-hmm. And they'll come and tell me, well, Dad's got to do this, or I'm not going to be able to win this race, or we had the wrong tire on, and that's invaluable if they're learning a lot more than just going around this track.
It is. Yep, it is.
And this particular track, we always, in the year and a half I've been here, and I've been to maybe 4 other tracks, we always say, the best quarter midget facility in the country. And as far as I'm concerned, it probably is. I don't go to a lot of them.
Oh, it is. It is.
But Bobby Lubani, what he did here was remarkable. And the man is to be commended for providing something for kids that would not have that opportunity. To race right here in the hotbed of racing. Yes. And like we just said, we dominated out at Nashville last weekend. Do you think it? I know everywhere I go, people say those Carolina drivers, they'll beat you. Is it because we're in the racing hub? What is? And most of them's parents work in NASCAR. I mean, is it that?
They do, and that's a true statement. Anywhere you go that the traveling North Carolina kids go, they're always right up front. And I think the track is really difficult to drive. Bobby and I designed this track. Bobby asked me, he said, how should we build it? We'll build a real high bank. I said, no, make it as flat as you can, where the chance he has to work and the kid has to know how to drive it. And so we did. Bobby said, well, I got to put a little bank in it so the water will drain. So that's what it is then. It is a little bank. And it's people come here like our fall nationals where we get 250, 300 cars from all over the country. Few of them do real well because they have such a hard time adapting to the track, beating our local kids. And it's I think that's one reason. Like when we go anywhere else, that our drivers do so well, and we just got some fantastic kids. Watching this race that's on the track now, any of them kids can win that race. Here, any of those kids can win a race they won in the country, and it's just a weekly race here today.
You know, what I enjoy watching is when, I know that the rule is if you're going to spin out, you know, you start at the back, but to see a car that
If you're in the pit area, you need an arm
that we
bracelet.
know
You need
is
to
a
come some way or be a member.
is the
If you're
is
in
a
the
winning
pit
race
area,
car,
you need a bracelet
come from
place.
ninth place in a 9-car field and methodically get around all those cars
Yep.
and not touch anybody's bumper. And all of a sudden you look around and here comes a checker flag and there that car is right out front. And that kid's smiling as big as a moon pie, you know, it's like, wow. And they enjoy that. A lot of them say, I don't mind starting back there because I can pass cars.
Right.
And it's fun.
Yep. It is fun. Here comes our president.
We got President Painter.
Interviewing the old man.
I thought I was the old man. That's what he always calls me, the old man. That was our NCQMA president. Now today I guess we're gonna have a meeting and nominate new board members, which is always interesting.
It is, yeah. I don't even know who's interested for next year. I'm not sure whoever it is. They'll do a fine job. Jerry's done a great job. He has had it the last 2 years. And
You know, to me, you got to have a passion for it, and Jerry has a passion for this, and he loves all these kids.
Yep.
And no matter what decision you're made, there's always going to be somebody that says, I take the opposite approach. I don't like what you did. But you know what? I honestly believe everything he does is for these kids that come up here. And that's what you got to be here for. And to have a totally volunteer organization, it's always been amazing to me, is they're all volunteered, and they do all these jobs. They run the best track in the country, and they had, I think, the finest young men and women, besides being drivers, just finest young men and women I ever met. They're just so great.
some really good people here. But, you know, that tends to be anywhere you go for some reason. You know, there'll be a bad apple every now and then, but you'll have that anywhere you go. But, I mean, I don't think I've ever seen a fight. I've seen people yell at each other, and the next thing you know, they're shaking hands, and
Well, it's interesting to see when two adults have a disagreement, but their kids are over here playing football together and laughing about what happened.
Yep.
And we've said 1,000 times, maybe the grown-ups should pay attention to the kids as far as maturity. And it's not just here. It's Little League Baseball. It's any sport where there's families and kids involved, because parents get, you know, they get emotionally involved in their kids, and they should.
Yep.
But it's all about that passion for making this racetrack the best racetrack it is, and the staff that we have here, it's unbelievable. And I've been, this is my second year here, and I've got to meet a lot of nice people down here, and then to see their kids. And you talk about these little race car drivers. Now we got a caution flag in one of the heat races, but they race every race as if it's the Indy 500. I mean, they go out there, and by gosh, they're going to win every.
They do. Yeah. Now, race is a race.
Yeah.
And it's we got two kids leading this thing. Have won national races all over the country, and they're very fierce competitors. But they're
what's that? Tyler Connell or Connor
Youngchuck and Nick Loden.
Nick Loden, and those are two names you'll always see at the top of about any race they go to.
You do.
Very, very talented young race car drivers. They got good cars.
Yep. They have good equipment. They've got good teachers. Their dads are both very knowledgeable, both in the NASCAR business.
Of course, I forgot to mention too that Connor's dad actually sponsors our pre-race show, Flash Products. So I got to get that plug in. You know how sponsors are.
Yeah. Chris, he builds the. Actually, he works as a head engine builder at Childress Racing. Does this on the side. He's about overwhelmed. His stuff is so good that everybody in the country wants it, and he gets it. I don't know how he does it, but.
Yeah, actually, my grandson worked with him this past year as an intern. Worked with that ECR. My son works for RCR, so I knew Chris from that. And I heard he built. At that time, I think my son said he built some kind of little engines for some little cars.
Yeah.
And the more I looked into it, I said, "My gosh, he's the Hendrick Motorsports."
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
Because he's got the best engines around, and everybody wants to have a Flash. And plus, I'm going to give you a plug with Stanley Chassis, because I've seen a lot of kids climb out of a car for check flag and say, I got to thank Stanley Chassis.
Yeah, we built a lot. I don't. Every now and then somebody will say, was there a serial number on these things or anything? I said, no, I wish I'd have done that because actually the very first car I built, I serial numbered. And the number on that, I always remember, was 37701. And that was because I built the 3rd month, March of 1977, first car. I wish I'd have continued that. For some reason I didn't. I've lost track. Somebody wants to know how many cars we've built. I said, well, I don't know. You know, when we first got started there, we built maybe 25 first year, 50 the second year. The last 2 or 3 years now, we've built over 100 cars a year. So it's just hard to say, but it's quite a few.
Now, if there's someone listening out there that says, I want to get into quarter midget racing, on a beginning level, what kind of investment would a parent have to make to get his kid to run a rookie race down here?
Well, you know, I don't think you need to go out and buy a brand new car from us or any of our competitors and a flash engine, and I don't think you need that. I think you can get in. There's a lot of used stuff around. I would get good used stuff because there's a lot of old stuff that you probably should stay away from. But I think there are a lot of good cars that you can probably get for $2,000 and be very competitive. And if for some reason you don't like it, or if your kid doesn't like it, or that car will probably always be worth $2,000, you can turn around and sell it. You buy a new car, it's like buying a new automobile. You know, we the first year, or the first time it hits the track, it's probably worth $1,000 less than it was.
Yep, depreciates as soon as it's on the track.
So I would say for $2,000, you can come out and be very competitive in the rookie class and just keep your eyes open, decide what you want. You know, there's some really good race cars out there. Fortunately, we sell more than anybody at this time, but I'll throw some plugs out. They're really good friends of mine. The guy in Pennsylvania builds Bull Rider cars. Very, very good cars. And him and I are best of friends. There's a guy in Ohio called Nervo. They build cars. And there's some that do it part-time in the garage after work. But there's some good stuff out there. And, you know, I tell people,
to the tower for receiver.
you certainly don't have to have my car to be my friend.
Right.
If you run across something, you don't know what it is, call me and I'll tell you. You know, I don't care if I build it or not. You know, hopefully one of these days you'll decide you want my car. You know, but
now, when a car first comes to the track, what kind of safety inspection has it gone through to put the stamp of approval that it's race worthy?
They check the belts. You have to change them out every 2 years. They're dated. They check those. They check that.
Beauchelle to the tower. Redmond to the tower. Beauchelle and Redmond to the tower,
bumpers,
please.
Nerf bars. Just anything that applies to safety is checked. Brakes, have to check the brakes. When they go through safety inspection, they're safe. You know.
So
check the driver's equipment, make sure it has neck braces and arm restraints and fireproof driving suit. And I saw one fire in 40 years, and nobody was hurt, fortunately. But in fact, that was last year in New York, and someone had installed the fuel line improperly. And they got down against the exhaust pipe. The car caught on fire. You know, kid jumped out, no problem, put the fire out. But that resulted in now you have to run fireproof fuel lines, stainless steel fuel filters, and you know, a lot of the safety things that's on these cars as well as NASCAR as a result of something that happened and we learned, you know. But I feel like in the quarter midgets, we've pretty well been through all of that. I think they're just as safe as they can be, and if somebody can think of something safer that they need, we'll put them on the cars.
Because, I mean, I've seen some of these cars take some pretty ferocious hits, and I've seen them roll down the front stretch or the back stretch, and they remain intact.
Yep.
You know, and like I said, the kids are pretty much restrained inside the car.
Yes.
And if you stay in that little driver's cockpit, you're not gonna. There's no. Just like on a Sprint Cup car, you'll see some of those cars with nothing left on them, and the driver unbuckles and crawls out because. And I think that's, and a lot of those safety features too, as you know, has been passed on to the passenger cars. People say, well, that some people don't like racing. Well, a lot of the things that the car manufacturers have adopted come from different racing circuits, and they say, well, this has to be this way to make it safer. And I think probably the safest place in the world to be when you're at a race is on the racetrack.
Oh, it is. It's the race cars. They're all the reputable dealers, like I was speaking of, all use, and probably the others do. I don't know if they don't, but we use aircraft chrome moly tubing. All of our bumpers and Nerf bars are made out of very high-grade stainless steel. They are very safe. And if a kid was to get hurt in one of these, not only the legal ramifications, but I don't think I could live with myself if I thought I did something that got a kid hurt. So we do everything we can to make them safe. And like I say, in 40 years, I saw a broken arm once before the days of arm restraints. And a natural instinct of the kid is when you flip, put your arm out. And he broke his arm. And as a result of that, now we all wear arm restraints. But like I say, I think we've been through all that. We've got the headrest to keep the kids' heads in the car. Some people go a step beyond. They'll put nets on. They're not required, but certainly not a bad idea if you feel safer with that. But, I think, I put my own kids in them. Got my granddaughter, used to run. She's retired now. And I certainly wouldn't have done that if I ever thought I was going to hurt a kid.
Yeah, I find it interesting when we say so-and-so is retired because it's like, 16 years old?
16, you have to quit.
They've aged out, so they call it, I'm retiring from quarter.
Retiring at 16, yeah.
It took me about 40-some more years than that before I could retire.
But some retire and go on to different forms of racing. Some retire and do other things. My granddaughter's like she wanted to do girl things. She's a cheerleader. And
see, that's what's neat about it. I mean, she had her thrills at racing. Now she said, I want to do something else. And that's what you do with the kids. You don't say, no, you're going to keep racing because I've invested all this money in it.
But they always love it. I see some of these kids, and we use the word retired. You'll look up and you'll see them stand on the fence. They still love it. And there was a kid here named Drew that helps Gavin that used to run my cars. And, he had to retire. He got so big and got too old, but yet he still wanted to be involved. And so he comes out and helps the kids.
He was actually the flag man last year, I believe.
Yeah, he did flag. And then this year he hooked up with Gavin.
Bochelle.
And he helps him and goes over with him. And, you see him. Some people just never leave. They love it. I'm one of them.
Like I said, every race I've been to, I've seen you. I went down to Georgia last year and saw you there. I went out to Indy last year and saw you there. And but I've gotten so busy with other things, I can't hardly, like last weekend I had football. And I'd love to have been in Nashville because, first of all, I like Nashville.
That's a really neat place, yeah.
And go out there and see these little kids that I see here, see them on the podium at a big event is pretty special because they...
Yeah, you mentioned Nashville. It's not all just racing. It's they had a national race at Nashville this year. Actually, it's Hermitage, just east of Nashville. Mm-hmm. But we all went there and practiced all day, and then I say all of us, probably 20 of us jumped in cars and went to downtown Nashville, which I'd never been. Mm-hmm. Had a great time. And so it's not just go to the racetrack, unload the race. Right. So much other things that go along with it.
Well, I mean, to some of these families, maybe most of them, that's a vacation period because they go. It's a long, maybe a 5-day weekend over there somewhere, and they're going to do things with their family. And that's what's good about here, like somebody said, you can't bring your kid and drop them off and go home.
No.
Like you can at baseball or other sport. Here, you're going to be here hands-on. And just the effect of having family time bonding together is more valuable than turning laps, I think.
It is. It is very family. I had 3 kids, very fortunate, 2 boys and a girl, that got into no trouble. I say trouble. The trouble kids seem to find when they have nothing to do. Mm-hmm. Because you just keep them involved. The family's together. And not to say it is foolproof. I have heard of some kids that come out of this and got in big trouble, but it certainly helps. I mean, time with your family, and we lost Robbie at age 26, and we talk about a lot. I love to talk about Robbie, but we were talking to some family just the other night. They said, I spent more time with my son in those 26 years than the average parent will spend with their son in a lifetime.
Mm-hmm. And that was because of racing.
Because of racing.
Because it was a common bond you had, and
and then somebody will say, "Well, don't you wish you'd never put him in a quarter midget? He'd still be alive." Well, however you want to look at things, I don't think maybe putting him in a quarter midget had anything to do with that. And if he were alive today, we'd probably be in a sprint car race tonight. So no, it's I don't look at it that way. If things happen, they happen.
I mean, it's a lot. As in any sport, there can be some unfortunate incidents, and in racing, it's kind of magnified because of the stage they're on, and then as soon as something happens, everybody's got a negative comment about racing.
Yeah.
But that's just one incident out of everything that goes on. How many tracks are there in the country? How many races go on every Friday and Saturday? So
I certainly don't want to get off and discuss the Tony Stewart incident, but that reminded me that had that happened to anybody besides Tony Stewart, we probably wouldn't be hearing about it. And then you get all the people who don't know, and some of the things I've read that they post, and it certainly makes you wonder.
I mean, obviously it was a horrendous thing that happened, and Tony obviously took it very hard, and like you said, if it had been Joe Blow that did that, it would just have been an incident in the paper, and then we forgot about it.
Exactly.
But when a public figure in today's world does anything, it's magnified. The media jumps all over it, and those sort of things were certainly our thoughts are with the Kevin Ward family, because that's a horrible thing, and I'm sure all of it will eventually wash itself out. But I wish Tony all the luck in the world to get back and do what he is the epitome of a race car driver.
He is a race car driver,
and doing what he loved to do. And I just wish him all the best. And when you go through these things, and you've had it in your own family, you do take a lot of second thoughts and say, wait a minute, what But then other people start making decisions or you're making comments on your behalf, and that's not what you really feel about it.
Yeah.
And it's unbelievable how some of these things get out of hand.
Well, when Robbie got killed,
we have a second blue rookie race, so just manual positions, volunteers.
You just want to yell at somebody, and it was nobody's fault. Just like I said, we'll get into Tony deal. It was an accident. Robbie was an accident. In racing, there's going to be accidents. They're less and less serious today as they used to be, but as long as people are driving race cars, there's going to be accidents.
The winner of the blue rookie heat race was
terrible
Dexter
for everybody
Knight, the third.
But it's very rare. I think you'll see more injuries this year in football.
Second place was Colton Curry. Third
Well,
place,
you see
Everson.
some of the,
Fourth place, Will Boatwright.
like that basketball player that broke his ankle coming down on a fast break, and it popped right in half, which is gory looking. But those things can happen, and I cover a lot of high school sports, and you see the one big thing nowadays is concussions. Every time somebody, like football last night, I think we had a kid that had a possible concussion. But I saw on TV that Bill Simpson may get into the football helmet business. He's gotten doing some research on reducing the impact of the head when you get those head-on hits. So
that would be good.
Simpson is he did a lot for safety.
Oh, yes.
And still does. So it's all about being safe. But I'm going to reflect back to when you and I were kids. We didn't have air conditioning.
Oh, no.
Didn't have a cell phone. Didn't have a computer.
Next on the track is our
Got up at early in the morning and went across town and played ball till it was dark or did something. Nobody ever said, "Where's he at? Where's he at?" And you came back home. And now the world has gotten so screwed up.
It is. That's a perfect analogy. It's a shame. I look at things I read, things I see, and think, what in the world? certainly glad I lived one.
Mr. Sipka.
Yeah, I mean, I would hate to be
Please
a
come back and
16-year-old
take your
kid or anything any younger than that because, the challenges today are just so different. And I know my mom,
Light War Formula,
she wouldn't be able to live in today's world because she had enough trouble, in the old days when we did it the old way. But things are certainly different. But, it's one thing about these kids having fun, the passion they have. You just can't take that away from these kids, and to watch them do this on Saturdays out here it's a joy for us to be able to come and do this. It's been a pleasure to. We could probably sit here all afternoon and talk, right? And I do appreciate you. I know you have things to do at the track. You got to do your politicking to all your customers.
My wife's there now. She does.
Oh, she'll take care of that. She will take care of that.
Yeah, Rita loves it. She lives for it. Oh, we both do. She really, really loves it. We were real busy in the shop last week, and I got to deliver 5 cars in Columbus next week, the national race. And only way I could get them done was stay home and work.
Mr. Sipka, we have
Rita
a
jumped
second
the van
new
with the
rookie
national
race. Please
without
report to the track.
she
Mr.
loves
Sipka
it,
or a
but,
volunteer chief steward.
She's a good woman. And we just had our 50th wedding anniversary.
Oh, wow.
yesterday.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
That's really, really, I know I see her a lot around here, and I know she's a fan of my website because I've seen her go on there and like things, and I appreciate that. She's a fine lady. I know she gets excited when kids win, and she
loves them.
Yeah.
Loves these kids. Yep.
Well, we're going to, we've been on the air for almost an hour. Can you believe
really?
that? Just about almost an hour.
And it just barely got started. Like I say, we could talk forever.
Well,
maybe we can do it again.
Well, I do appreciate you taking time this morning to come over and be on our
Mr. Allen.
Tracking Live show, brought to you by Flash Products,
Yes.
the number one engine builder in quarter midget.
That's a fact.
That's a fact. You can look at the record book if you don't believe it.
Yep, absolutely.
Who won the races. And I'm going to say this, the number one chassis in the business, the Stanley chassis.
Well, thank you.
Because I've heard a lot of great comments. And I know there's other builders out there, just like there's Ford and Chevy on Sundays.
Yep.
But, when you're good, you can't deny it. And I think you've done, not only do you do a great service as far as products, but the fact that you and your wife have invested your life beyond, your kids racing. Mm-hmm. You're still doing things to make other people's kids happy, bring other families into the sport. And I think that speaks volumes of your commitment to something you obviously love a whole lot.
Oh, I do.
And we appreciate it. And we'll sit back down again. Maybe at the I keep calling it the California Fall Nationals. It's a Carolina. Well, I'm not in California. Never been out there. Oh no.
Yeah, very big race. Happens over Thanksgiving here at our track. And people from all over the country come. It's really a fun time. We'd like to do that.
I remember last year, first time I saw, and this is a gentleman, I'm not even sure what kind of chassis, but Carson Hosevar from up in Michigan. Such a great young man, and man, can he drive a race car. I'm telling you.
He's probably, I've seen some great drivers in this sport, but he is one of the best that I've ever seen. Fortunately, he runs our cars. He runs 5 different classes. Harrison Burton, who retired, had the leading national wins, and retired, went on late models. Now Carson has taken over that, and I think he's won nearly 60 of them. It'll be a long time before somebody beats that. But very, very good family. Really fortunate to have him in our equipment.
We will certainly have Carson on one of our shows, and we'll have you back on the show because I guess when you want to know something about quarter midget racing, you might as well go to Ron Stanley because he's going to tell you the truth, and he's been there and done that. So
I have done it. Yeah.
We appreciate it, Ron, and enjoy some time. Probably in the shade you want to get today because the sun is beating down.
It's hot, isn't it?
It is hot. So for Ron Stanley, this is Mike Pettaway. I want to say again, Ron, thank you a lot. Appreciate you taking time. We're going to go ahead and sign off our show. Be back on the air probably around 1:15 or so for the A mains for the NCQMA. So thanks a lot for joining us.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. That was Mr. Ron Stanley, who anybody who's been around quarter midget knows all about the work that he has done and the history his family has in racing. So we're gonna sign off for Tracking Live, which was brought to you by Flash Products. We'll be back on the air at 1:15 approximately with Sam Hatfield doing the calling all the races this afternoon, and we'll have a pit reporter. Probably yours truly will be the pit reporter. So thank everyone for joining in and listening to to an icon in the racing world, not only in quarter midget, but just a well-respected man that's done a whole lot for racers of all ages. His family's been a great an ambassador for racing, and we want to say we appreciate Ron Stanley and appreciate him taking time. So until we come back for the A mains, and hopefully it'll be around 1:15, we will put something up on our Twitter about what time the A mains will start. So thank you for joining us, and we will talk to you here shortly.